Hello and welcome to Newsdesk. My name is Atani Delali Emmanuel. The program today, court rules on Woyome's submission of no case. I'll tell you what the ruling is when we get in touch with Eric Howard, who's been at the court. Also on the program today, there is an ongoing EPA consultative meeting. Okay, we'll sign, but do you understand exactly what the economy managers are getting you into? We'll bring you some understanding of the EPA with the European Union in the course of the program. Today is International Day for Peasant Farmers. Well, here in Ghana, the Coalition for Farmers' Rights and Advocacy, who have been calling for a moratorium on genetically modified foods, have decided to mark the day by picketing at the Kaneshi market, and we'll bring you up to speed exactly what this one too is about and what it's meant to achieve for them at all.
GM seeds are not seeds which Ghanaians should be allowed to cultivate. We are being told that when you cultivate GM seeds, it improves yields. We are being told that it reduces pest invasion of our crops. This is sometimes true in a few occasions, in a few years. But in India, in Europe, and in many other places, we are coming to realize that GM food is bringing farmers more hardships. Everywhere there has been cultivation of GM seeds, farmers have suffered. Europe has banned GM foods. Asia is banning GM foods. America is rising up against GM foods. We strongly believe that these foods are not coming to help Ghanaian farmers.
How the picketing today at the Kaneshi market would help solve that situation, we'll find out when we get in touch with Duke. Meanwhile, let's get into the Woyome case of his submission of no case. Now, the Accra Financial Court, presided over by Justice John Najeta Sam, has adjourned the ruling on whether the charge against Alfred Agbashi Woyome regarding the receipt of 51.28 million judgment debt will be dropped, or he will be ordered to open his defense by 30th May. The judge, Justice John Najeta Sam, is said to be suffering from an eye problem. Eric Howard was there. Let's look at what he brought in. Well, I understand Curtis is over the telephone. Let's speak to Curtis briefly. Hello, Curtis.
Hello, Kamini. Good morning.
Good morning to you. You were in court today. Bring us up to speed. What happened?
Okay, so today at court, obviously supporters of Woyome who had thronged in the court in their numbers. You know, they were expecting a ruling today. Most of them were in white, and there were just a number of 100 supporters. They had accompanied Woyome to court to see the outcome of the case. You know, Woyome had filed a case of no submission in a case that he's been accused of illegally taking some 51 million Ghana cedis from the state. So in court, everybody was expecting a ruling. The judge came and he said, he said he had been suffering from an eye infection for some time now, so he had not finished writing his ruling. So he adjourned the case to the 30th of this month, where he would give the final ruling. And
how did the parties to the case feel about it?
From mostly Woyome, his counsel, we spoke to his counsel, Musa Ahmed. He expressed disappointment. He was hoping that the case would be expedited, so the ruling would have been given to the matter. So they bring the whole case to rest because, according to him, his client, for the past 2.5 years now, his client has been moving in and out of court, and he has had a great toll on him and on his business. So he was expecting that something would have been done to him. But he said, hey, 30th is not too far from now. It's just about a week away from now. So they will still wait, and they will wait for the charger to come and give his ruling. But he was very confident of a positive result. For Woyome supporters, they were kind of disappointed. They were like, oh, they really thronged in the court in their numbers, expecting a ruling of some sort so that they will know the way forward. But when the case went, they were like, okay, 30th is just a week away, so let's wait and let's see the outcome. Okay.
I see. So has it been adjourned to 30th April or May?
Hello, Kamini, the question again.
Give us the dates, the adjourned date, the new date for court.
It's 30th April. It's 30th April.
30th April.
It's 30th of April this month, and ruling is expected to start somewhere around 8 a.m. Yeah. in the morning.
Now, there were concerns about the absence of the Attorney General at some point in the proceeding. Today, when there was supposed to be a ruling, what would you tell us about attendance?
Yes, attendance in court was packed. It was packed. The media was there, obviously. And, of course, representatives from the AG's department as well as the lawyers for Woyome were all in court. They were in court to, just to get to know what the outcome of the ruling. Normally when a court sits and is the date for the ruling, we normally have a packed courthouse. We normally have a full house. We have a lot of people coming in to, just to know the outcome of the case. So today's situation was no different. It was a packed courthouse, and everybody was there to know what the judge had to do.
Come April 30, this case would go either either the judge upholding the submission of no case, or the judge would ask Woyome to open defense. Let's look at submission of no case. When that happens, what does it mean for the matter in court?
It means that the substantive case in court can no longer be heard. It means that the substantive case in court no longer has weight. So obviously that case also will have to be thrown out of court. I think the Woyome councillors filed the submission of no case because of the failure of the prosecution consistently to bring witnesses to court. Consistently when you go to court, then you hear the prosecution saying they're still investigating and their witnesses fail to turn up. So the back and forth of witnesses failing to turn up and everything was what forced the counsel for Woyome to go out there to file a submission of no case. So now they filed the submission of no case. When depending on the judgment that will be given out, if the judgment is in favor of Woyome and his team, it means that he will go back to court so that the substantive case that is already in court to be struck out as well. And official, that is what the counsellors for Woyome and Woyome himself are actually hoping will happen, so that this case, which has been ongoing for the past 2.5 years, will be put to rest. And one more thing, Woyome himself was in court. He was, as usual, in his white apparel. He was very optimistic. You could see that at the point in time he had wanted to communicate to the media to express his feelings, but he allowed his counsel to do that. So he's just waiting for the 30th and finally to make a comment or two on the issue.
So in the event Woyome is expected to open his defense, what should we expect to happen in court?
Yeah, in the event that he opens his defense, then we expect the case to go on and on and on, quite lengthy case. The case, like I told you earlier, the case has been ongoing for the past 2.5 years now. So by now, had the prosecution be very consistent in bringing witnesses to court and everything, by now I believe the case would have gone somewhere. But the failure on the part was, that's how the case has gone this way. But should a judge rule that, okay, Woyome still needs to open a defense, then it means that we expect a trial that will quite be lengthy and it will be extended for a while, and that it will mean that Woyome will have to come and give his own defense as to whether indeed the 51 million Ghana cedis he's been accused of siphoning from the state, he has taken that money or not. So it's going to be quite a lengthy case, and it's going to go on for quite some time.
I see. Right. Thank you very much, Eric, for that update. Eric Etisawo joined us from the Accra Financial Court, where the case brought Woyome's submission of no case filed in the court has been adjourned to a later date, April 30, due to the judges, Justice John Najit Sam's eye problem. Until April 30, would get that ruling. Thank you very much for staying on here on Newsdesk. Now, stakeholders to the Economic Partnership Agreement are meeting Accra this morning to deliberate on the way forward for Ghana and other individual countries who are nursing plans to sign the Economic Partnership Agreement. Ghana, on the other hand, appears to have made up its mind in signing the agreement amid lots of public outcry. The debate has been, why not allow the ECOWAS as an organized body sign the agreement instead of individual member states signing with the EU? In the last State of the Nation address, the President John Dramani Mahama said, and quoting him, Ghana must however consider traditional measures to guarantee market access, seeing as the original partnership agreement would not have been ratified before the deadline of 14th October of this year. So is this why we are signing, and is it a reason good enough for signing? Join us live from I told you we're going to bring you a live feed from the consultative meeting at the International Conference Center. Eric Curtis Howard is joining us from the... Hello, Curtis. Well, right. So, in the absence of that, while we wait for Curtis to bring us the live feed, let's start with our studio conversation on this. I have in the studio with me Samuel Ahoklu. Samuel Ahoklu is with the Integrated Development and Empowerment Center. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
You people have an interesting thought on what the Economic Partnership Agreement will do to us. Share that with us.
Yes, we've studied the EPA from the human rights perspective. And we've realized that it is not in the interest of Ghana and Africa or ECOWAS as a whole. We've realized that though our foreign partners, who are our former colonial masters, though they do help us when it comes to foreign aid, they should be able to allow us to have our sovereignty as a people and to be able to sustain ourselves to a point and not to put gun on our head to agree to whatever is not in our interest.
How does this become a matter of human rights when we're looking at it from a very economic stance, a very economic view?
Yes, we have economic rights, we have cultural rights, we have social rights. When we were in the colonial era then, they were ruling all aspects of our life, cultural, economic, social and political. We have gained political independence. We are unable to gain economic independence. So now they have packaged that and they are coming back to rule us in terms of our economic. We will not be able to decide whatever I want to do with our economic. So that is it. That the case is that they have come back, refine this, package it, and then come to tell us that we want to take over your economic activities. What
within this agreement informs your decision or thoughts that this could be an infringement on our very human rights?
It is because we have self-determination and sovereignty. And if, for instance, the textile industry, for example, that is the key industry people are complaining about. We know the Vlisco, the Hollandi cloth, and we also have GTP here. And these people, the EPA has a free tariff in terms of port charges. They wouldn't pay duties when they bring this product to Ghana. And if they will not pay duties, it means that they can determine the kind of price they will give to their products. And since they are bringing this product to Ghana, they would give it a price that probably will be cheaper than the ones we make in Ghana here. If that happens, people will be out of job. But we have the right to employment, the right to work as citizens and have a standard of living. So if you have cheap products in our country, because they are not paying duty and they are going to sell that very cheap, and our product might be expensive because we don't have the capacity as they have, because they have now gotten to a level where they are producing at a very cheaper rate in Europe. This particular agreement has been there for a very long time, but they want to reach a level where they can produce at a very minimum cost and come and sell to us at a very cheap cost.
I'm happy you mentioned textiles. Let's deal with textiles. Are we not already having an influx of counterfeit textiles from what has been described as where it's believed to come from China?
Yes.
Don't we already have that influx in the markets? Wouldn't it rather be prudent for the government to put in measures to deal with the matter rather than attack the EPA on that level?
No, the issue is that we have it already. Crimes are being committed. Do we have to ask for more crime to be committed? We have Chinese clothes in Ghana, GTP, they are complaining. Ghanaian local industries are complaining. Now we want to add the foreign, the European ones to the existing ones. Government has been trying to fight the influx of clothes from China. They have been trying to do that. Now that they have been trying to do that, we are now calling for more to come in. And I can assure you that in economics, now that the EU are producing at a very cheaper rate, their products are going to be very cheap in Ghana when they come.
Beyond textile, what else? Because it's quite a huge agreement.
Yes, 80%.
What else is prompting this?
Yes, a lot. The poultry industry. We also have the clothing industry. That's the textile. The poultry industry. Electronics, And talk of anything, except the 20% that will take care of the sensitive industries like the agriculture sector.
Okay.
Aside that, any product at all will be brought to Ghana.
How about the fact that we would also have 100% all access to the EU markets?
We would have, but the question is that most of the time when these agreements are signed, they only want us to sign the agreement, and then later regulations will follow. How many Ghanaians can pack their bag and baggage and say they are going to the EU to do business there? How many of them can do that? And even if we are supposed to even import leather, because I heard the sector foreign minister this morning saying that a gentleman told them that he is interested in this EPA because he has been importing leather from Europe, and he imports leather and then the duties are very high. But when the EPA is signed, this gentleman will import this leather without paying anything. I mean, we have leather in the north. So we have leather in the north, we have leather in Nigeria, we have leather in Burkina Faso. He can always import from there. We don't have to take it from Europe.
Right. If we decide not to sign this, we could also be losing the 40% market. The EU represents 40% of our export market, yes, which we could be losing if we decide not to sign this EPA. Yes. It's no concern to the Empowerment Center?
Yeah, they said that. That's what I'm saying, that it's like a gun on our head to sign the agreement, because it's like a condition they are giving to us. If you don't sign this, we are going to take that 40% away from you. So it's like, I heard the minister saying that it's like a ghost dance in the northern region. It's a proverb: if you dance forward, your mother dies. If you dance backwards, your father dies. So we are in between. We don't know what to do, and it's like we have been I don't know. There's gun on our head to sign the EPA, and we have to make sure that we give them timeline, because I've read from so many arguments from Kenya, from Nigeria, and that Africa, we need more time to deliberate on this. This was supposed to be done in 2016. All of a sudden, they brought it back to 2014. 1st October should be the deadline. We are asking that we be given more time. I've heard so many arguments. We want to establish a common currency called the ECO. They should allow us to do that, so we know that as a regional body, we have economic strength. With the ECO in place, we'll be able to accept anything they will give to us. So they should give us a timeline for us to be able to think of this and do a wider consultation, as it's been done at the conference center today.
Tell us how the ECO could strengthen our front if we wait enough for the ECO to be established before we sign.
Yes, it can. If you look at the Francophone countries, you see they have a very strong currency. And if you read through all their economies, their inflation rates are always very low because they have a strong currency. I think when we also do same, together with all the 16 African ECOWAS countries, we will have the same strength as the CFA has.
Some proponents of for the EPA mentioned the fact that when you look at those within the West African bloc, they all seem to have some sort of trade liberalization with the European Union. 12 out of them, described as less developed countries, have some sort of liberalization.
The custom union clauses and many other related issues. Let me also assure the Ghanaian public, and particularly civil society, that the ECOWAS negotiators and even Ghana have not agreed onto 100% market access of the EU into our market. We still will have 25% kept to us for purposes of essential commodities that we naturally will protect. And it's also significant for me to add that mathematically, even today as we speak, EU already have at least 35% market access in Ghana, if you look at the volume of exports, particularly capital goods that enters our country. So arithmetically, the debate mathematically is reduced to the additional 40%, which will be added to the existing 35% that EU already have access into our market. And I hope that this will help all of us in guiding what we will take as a decision of the country. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, bottom line, the EU have reviewed its market access regulations, to which they have indicated that on or about 1st October 2014, if they do not get a partnership concluded with the ECOWAS region, they are likely to deny us market access. We currently are exporting not less than 45% of our exports are to the EU. I'm told that for last year, we did an export not less than 500 million euro into the EU market. We need to take a decision whether we want an immediate disruption of the opportunity of having market access to the EU, which may also have dire consequences on, I've heard comments from the Association of Ghana Industries. Many of the exporting agencies in Ghana rely on some of our industrial establishments, for instance, those who process cocoa, immediately will not have market access. What happens to the employment of those Ghanaians in that particular sector must also guide us in taking a country decision. Many of our free zones companies export into the EU market. What will happen to them if they are denied? So the debate and decision is about whether we want to safeguard jealously access to the EU market. Let me indicate strongly that government over the medium and long term have taken a decision to diversify the direction of our exports. But this may not be an immediate one within the next 1 to 2 years. We need now to identify new markets, comply with their minimum standard. We also must note that there are significant EU investments in our country, and that informs our relationship. So let me use this opportunity once again to indicate that today's forum is not the first of its kind. There were some consultations in the past, but we still are open. Government is not impervious to legitimate concerns and suggestions that will be raised by civil society groups, including the TUC, the Economic Justice Network, and the Third World Network. I agree that we ought to have conducted a fiscal impact assessment of the EPAs on our economy. That government will commence some immediate work on to guide short, medium term what we need to do as a country. But primarily and basic, we will have to improve the competitiveness and capacity of the Ghanaian private sector and industrialists, to which we are still discussing with the EU whether the 6.5 billion development assistance will be enough or inadequate. My argument is that it is not adequate in order to be able to build the capacities of our private sector and industrial establishment in order to make them more competitive. The debate is ongoing and will be guided today by your informed and evidence-based input into guiding ECOWAS and Ghana in taking a decision which is in our best national interest. On this note, once again, let me thank you for accepting to be associated with this event. We are a transparent government, and we have an obligation to allow for public input in the decisions that we take as government. And I warmly welcome all of you, and thank you.
Right, so that's just the beginning of the consultative meeting. I have here with me in the studio Samuel Ahokli. He's with the Integrated Development and Empowerment Center. He heads the Trade Minister, Haruna Idrisu.
Yes, I heard him, and I think this is what we have been calling for. There should be a wider consultation. This is the first of its kind. It's also going on in some venues now, I'm aware, and 1st October 2014 is still a very long time. But one thing that we need to do is that how many people are watching this? Ghanaians must be involved in anything that affects them, and we are in a participatory democracy, so there should be search for us in the regional capitals for people who are not English speakers or who can understand English, can also understand why we are going for this and the repercussion that will come after it, so that when it comes, we will say we sold ourselves to the Europeans.
I'm very much interested in the fact that we've watered it down to say that it could affect our very human rights. I want us to shed some more light on it. What sort of human rights? How do we make an understanding of the fact that signing this the EPA with the EU could be selling our own best rights to the EU? But let's go back to the conference center. Hannah Tete, Foreign Minister, is on the floor.
I think you are a sector that is underrepresented. Underrepresented because ultimately this discussion affects you. And so, if you would allow me again, those of you from the fisheries sector, I'd like to ask you a couple of questions. I'd start with Mr. Nicol, and again, having been Minister of Trade before, I do know a number of you. So if I call you by name, let's consider it part of the dialogue. Mr. Nicole, how many employees do you have? 2,000. Directly. How many vessels supply to your factory? 43 vessels. Do you have any idea how many people those 43 vessels employ? Over 1,000 people. But they're not the only other people who depend on your business for business, are they? Who are the others who depend on your business? Okay, thank you very much. I saw George from Golden Exotics. George, how many people do you employ? 2,500 workers. How many other people depend or work with your business as suppliers? How many other businesses who work with you? What is their employee base? About 1,200 workers. All right. I won't go into the exercise of asking everybody. In fact, I think the ladies and gentlemen of the media who are here, I would encourage you not only to look for civil society and for the campaigners who think that this is a bad idea, but let's ask the people who would be directly affected, because then we have an informed debate. So, George, if we didn't have an EPA, what would happen to your staff? You'd have to shut down. What is the value of your export per annum? 35 million euros. Okay. Have a seat. Mr. Nicole, what's the value of your export per annum? $200 million. Okay. Now, ladies and gentlemen, I just wanted that as an introduction, because I think in this discussion we have missed out on the businesses. And that is, or those are the people I want us to bring into this debate as well, so that we can determine what the trade-offs are for Ghana as a country. And let me go back to some of the points that Haruna made. From 1975, we had non-reciprocal duty-free access into the European Union market. Non-reciprocal because we were not obliged to do away with any duties, but we had quotas on some products. So as a matter of fact, for the longest time, we weren't even going to be able to export bananas to the European Union because of the quota system. And as we built up our non-traditional export base, a lot of those people in the non-traditional export sector built up their businesses on the back of duty-free access to the EU market. Now, the Lomé agreement went through several iterations, Lomé 1, 2, 3, 4, and finally with the Cotonou Partnership Agreement. But you see, when one group of countries, in this case the ACP countries, have duty-free access to the EU market, what it means is that they are more competitive against products from other parts of the world that don't have the same kind of market access. And so for the countries from Latin America, from the countries from Asia, the kind of preferences that were available to the ACP countries were not available to them, and as you can imagine, they protested. And so even for the Cotonou Partnership Agreement, the EU had to get a waiver from the WTO to have that last phase of non-reciprocal duty-free access of ACP products into the EU market. And it was at the time when we entered into the Cotonou Partnership Agreement that it was clear that we were going to have to negotiate reciprocal free trade agreements if we were going to continue to maintain our duty-free market access. And now it's become duty-free and quota-free market access. So this EPA is not imposed on us by the European Union. If we don't want to have duty-free access, we can move on to the general system of preferences. But if we want to have it, then we need an EPA. And we should approach this discussion from that viewpoint. Those are the choices. Either we have an EPA or we move on to the GSP. Now, when we began the discussion, the ACP group was divided into regions, and our region is the ECOWAS region, which is the reason why we've had discussions.
You're welcome back to the studio. Still Newsdesk. We'll go back to the International Conference Center shortly, but let's finish our conversation here in the studio. So, Samuel, I was asking,
yes,
how was this? Obviously, these are some of the things that civil society is looking forward to, consultative meetings ahead of the signing. But if we say that this indeed could tell on our human rights as a people, it's bad for our human rights.
yes.
What exactly are we saying? I want to understand that really.
Yeah, it is because we have economic rights as a people. The right to conduct our own business in our own way. The right to protect our business sectors, our peasant farmers and our farmers. The right to protect them because through that they earn a living. And if you earn a living, you have a strong, human dignity that nobody can violate your rights.
But like she said, Hannah Tete said, it's not an imposition. I mean, we as a country are choosing to do
I find
this.
that very surprising. I wouldn't lie to you. I found that very, very surprising. It is. This is an imposition. They told us categorically when we were moving the date from 2016 to 2014, they told us that by 1st October 2014, we should sign an agreement. That's what they told us. So I found that very, very surprising.
Now, of course, it's a business deal, and parties, after the so many postponements in signing the deal, I mean,
yes, you know, I think
in a business transaction, it's not such a bad thing to give deadline.
Yes, of course, it is true. But I heard the Minister of Trade just revealed that the 20% is now 25%, and that is okay. That's what we are calling for. They should give us time for us to deliberate on this. Wider consultation. People make their input. We make suggestions to them to tell them that, okay, this is not in our interest. Can you please reform this? If it goes that way, we would have probably, yes, we can do without the world. Globalization, these are some of the disadvantages of globalization. We are feeling the effect. It's a global village. We have to work together as people in the same world. So we are not saying that there are no benefits. There are benefits. But we are saying that the benefits are less, but the disadvantages are very high.
But my thing is, Europe is on the upper hand because Europe is more developed. Europe has all the industries. Europe has the market for us as well. And so if Europe is not willing to change its stance against a lower middle income country like ours, put together the whole of ECOWAS, and then you have a lot of less developed countries, and is unwilling to change the terms of the agreement, we don't sign and then do business with who and which countries?
That is what I'm saying, that it's a gun on our head. It's a gun on our head because we cannot do without Europe. We cannot do without America. Whenever they bring some of these things, there's nothing we can do. But what we have to do is to bargain and get a better side of it. We need to bargain. That is the reason why they are holding all these meetings, and we have to do more and discuss more and come to a better conclusion for our people. Other than that, we'll be selling our sovereignty to the world. Right.
Samuel, we'll end our conversation here. Thank you very much. Samuel Ahokris with the Integrated Development and Empowerment Center. So now that we are done with the discussion on the EPA, but just keep in mind, after the program, we'll go live to the International Conference Center and see more of the consultative meeting. But some picketing is going on at the Kaneshie markets. And the reason for the picketing is because the coalition for farmers' rights has decided that we will picket against GMOs as we mark the International Day of Peasant Farmers. I'll be right back with that.
It's interesting that I haven't heard any analysis going on about the implications of the common external tariff, because we've actually had to lower tariffs on some agricultural products under the common external tariff to be in conformity with our ECOWAS member states. The tariff on rice, for instance, is going to reduce within the CET, but that's a different matter. And with the common external tariff, with now the same tariffs applying over all of ECOWAS, we were now in a position to make a market access offer to the European Union. For the longest time, the European Union wanted us to liberalize 80% of the tariffs. We finally came to a conclusion where they agreed to liberalize 75% of the tariffs. But that's not the only headline that is important. The question is, what is in the 25% of tariffs which we are not going to liberalize? And within the 25%, we have most of our agricultural products. We have most of our manufacturers within ECOWAS. Because your government is not oblivious to the fact that there are businesses that exist that don't access the EU market. And that, for that matter, those businesses also must be looked out for. As a matter of fact, when we negotiated the interim economic partnership agreement in Ghana, and I wish Dr. Abe were here, because I recall that, because as Minister of Trade, I was asking him, how did we get to the 20% of goods we were excluding in our interim economic partnership agreement? And he said he had asked the Association of Ghana Industries to give a list of all the products that we manufactured in Ghana and we wanted protected. And all of those fell within the 20%. And all of those fall within the 25% of ECOWAS. So it is not the case that imported poultry products from the European Union are going to undercut the domestic poultry industry, because we are not planning to remove the tariffs on poultry. It is not the case that imported meat products, subsidized EU agricultural products, are going to undercut local production, because the tariffs on those products will remain. The devil with all of these trade agreements is always in the detail. And with this frame of 75%, 25%, that's finally what we've come to at the ECOWAS level. However, it's not going to be liberalized all at once. The liberalization schedule takes place in 5-year groups. And we've also given ourselves the window to review the ECOWAS EPA every 5 years. And that also is part of the agreement, because we want to make sure that at the end of the day, we have a window within which to discuss how we are going to move on the implementation of this framework.
Right, and so we will go back to the conference center, but now let's talk about co-farm and let's pick it into the Kaneshie market. Today is International Day of Peasant Farmers, and on this day, the Coalition for Farmers' Rights and Advocacy have decided to picket at the Kaneshie markets with the aim of reiterating their call for a moratorium or complete ban on genetically modified foods in the country. April 17 every year is recognized as International Day of Peasant Struggle. It is used to commemorate the massacre of some 19 peasants struggling for land and justice in Brazil in 1996. So why Kaneshie market? And is it not clear? No one seems to be listening to their concerns. Joining us in the studio are members of Food Sovereignty Ghana. Well, he's over the telephone rather. Food Sovereignty Ghana. Duke.
Hello.
How are you today?
We are doing great.
But there's a lot of noise in the background. I can only assume that you are the Kaneshie market.
Yes, we are.
Right. Tell us exactly why you are there today.
Well, today, April 17th, we are commemorating not only the massacre of 19 people struggling for land and justice in 1996 in Brazil, but we are also here to reaffirm our determination to support
been feeding us with good food for tens of thousands of years. Our message to our fellow countrymen and women today is that Ghana must support our own farmers and support our own food supply. What is needed more than ever is for Ghana to give more support and research and extension also for agroecological agriculture, which includes agroforestry, green manuring, cover cropping, and all of the others that we have heard about. Now, these technologies have been proven to be more resilient to climate change, and they're also more sustainable, to our environment. But unfortunately, Ghana is rather investing in green revolution, which doesn't tackle this particular problem which confronts the farmers of our country.
Right, Duke.
I'm so happy that
Duke.
the majority of market women we have connected today to interact with them. And in fact,
Duke.
is just wonderful.
Duke, there seems to be a lot of noise in your background, and so we'll call you back over the telephone, and then if you could reposition yourself before we do so.
All right.
Right, Duke Tego is with Food Sovereignty Ghana. We'll get him over the telephone and then finish our conversation on their picketing today at the Kaneshie markets. Now, here are some of the things they hope to do with the protest today at the Kaneshie markets. They want to stop land grabbing here in the country. They are also asking for the implementation of a genuine agrarian reform in order to bring about social justice in rural areas. Again, they are asking for the strengthening of an agricultural production model based on family farming and food sovereignty. Duke is back over the telephone, and Duke, hopefully this time you wouldn't have to shout and would hear you all right. Duke, so you are there, you're hoping that at the end of the day you deal with the issues of land. Do we have any issues of land grabbing here when it comes to peasant farmers?
Oh, yes. We are finding ourselves in a situation where the Ministry of Agriculture is currently working with the World Bank under a $50 million agreement for a commercial agriculture development program, which is aiming at pushing into forming multinational corporations huge tracts of land under this project. Now, this is definitely going to affect farmers' rights over land, for which they have fought for several years. Already, we have a situation where huge tracts of our land are given over to gold mining companies. They have given our farmers of this land. They are mining our gold and taking them outside of this country, and our farmers have become poorer. This has led to the menace of calamity in our country, and we believe that it is important we all work towards ensuring that availability of land to peasant farmers is a matter of right, and that no other attempt is made to relinquish our farmers of this very important resource. This resource which has ensured that society has progressed year after year.
Anyway, Duke, thank you very much all the same. Duke Tego is with Food Sovereignty Ghana. The group is protesting against a number of things as we mark International Day of Peasant Farmers today, and includes land grabbing, and they want the implementation of a genuine agrarian reform in the country. Let's move on to something else quickly that has to do with mining. And the National Coalition on Mining wants their new president of the Minerals Commission, Dr. Tony Obin, to be removed as head of the commission. I'm joined over the telephone by Halsan Atakwesin, his lecturer at university. Well, I believe I have lost him there, but hello, Al-Hassan.
Yes, I can hear you.
Right. Thank you very much for joining us here on Newsdesk. But really, why this call and why now?
Okay. It's just about 2 weeks ago that the news broke out that the president has appointed one Dr. Tony Obin, formerly the CEO of the Chamber of Mines, to become the CEO of the Minerals Commission. We were very shocked by this news, and we've had some consultations with our members, and the decision was to request that the president rescind that decision in the interest of this country and in the interest of Dr. Tony Obin himself. it is true that he's a Ghanaian and he can be appointed to serve that position. Indeed, he can become a president if he so wishes. But given his recent association with the mining industry and the extent to which he went to defend the interest against the interest of Ghana, we find it very interesting and shocking that a president would make such an appointment. Just a few months ago, the president himself at Davos indicated that some of the good policies that he outlined to ensure that Ghana receive adequate benefits from our irreplaceable mineral resources have been thwarted by mining companies. And we all know the role that Dr. Tony Obin played in thwarting all these policies. So just a few weeks after that, asking Dr. Tony Obin himself, who has been fighting the government as far as these policies are concerned, to become the Chief Executive Officer of the Minerals Commission, which is a constitutional body mandated to regulate the mineral sector, is something that shocks everyone who has been following the sector. But
one would say when he was there with the chamber, he only acted just as the CEO for the chamber would act. And now he's with a different commission altogether. And it's only right that he would act in favor of the commission as well.
Yes, but you see, the problem we have now is that just a few months ago, the president, indicated how weak government is as far as implementing some policies are concerned when it affects the mineral, the mining sector or the mining industry.
Okay.
So for just a short while to turn back and pick someone from the industry who has made it extremely difficult for the country to receive adequate benefits from the irreplaceable mineral resources, to become the CEO of the Minerals Commission, who virtually would have to be doing the same thing that he's been fighting, that's where the concern arises from. That is the same person who has been fighting these type of policies. So how is he now going to implement them? And I think that he himself will be better served if he relinquishes himself of that position.
I see. And so what now? I know you've come out with a strong worded statement, but beyond that, what will we see the coalition do?
Well, on Wednesday and Thursday, the coalition is having a general meeting, and this is one of the main issues to be discussed. And a lot of things that would happen thereafter would make them public to you. Your support that we seek is that you help us in reaching Ghanaians who we know very well that have been very much shocked by this appointment, so that together we can safeguard and protect the interest of Ghana.
But who do you think would be more appropriate for that position?
Well, there are a number of Ghanaians who, if the president should ask us to bring nominations, we can do a consultation and present some lists. But the right person that Dr. Obin is replacing has impeccable records as far as experience and expertise in the mining sector is concerned.
Let's just say it was time for change and then the president did that. But, if you were asked who you thought could fill the position just as well as Ben Ayi, what would you call for?
You mean besides Ben Ayi?
Yes.
Again, because I'm now speaking on behalf of the coalition, it wouldn't be appropriate to float names that would not...
In other words, the coalition is only decided on Ben Ayi.
No. The coalition is saying that if you want to replace Ben Ayi as a president, you have the opportunity to do so. But you do not replace him with someone who has been defending multinational companies against the interests of Ghana only some few weeks or months ago.
All right. So while the coalition does not want Obin in the position, it still is unclear who could fill the position should Obin be taken out.
No, I think that is the responsibility of the president to look for someone who is appropriate. As Ghanaians, if we are requested to submit names, I'm saying that we can have our consultations and present some names. But because we've not been asked to do that, what we have to do is to ask ourselves that the person that has been nominated or appointed, is he the best person for the sector, which is done? And the answer is a big no.
I see. Thank you very much, Al-Hassan. Nata Kwesen is lecturer at the University of Ghana. We've been speaking on the call on President Mahama to rescind Dr. Oben's appointment as head of Minerals Commission, and it's coming from the National Coalition on Mining. And Atakwesin, I'm sure, is a member of the coalition. Well, that'll be all for today. This hour already. Thank you very much for staying through Newsdesk today. When I go, we'll continue with the live coverage of the consultative meeting on the Economic Partnership Agreement with the EU, live from the conference center here in Accra. You might want to stay on for that. If we are going to sign, we might as well know what we are signing. But thank you very much, all the team. I'll see you again on midday on News Today. My name is Kemini Nyamani Amana. Goodbye.
Up to the end. So let me welcome Mr. Sidney Castley-Hayford, who will state of play of the EPAs. He is coming to do justice on the EPAs. And from there, he will continue moderating the program to the end. Please, let's welcome him with a round of applause.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you very much. Honorable Minister of Trade, the Honorable Ministress of Foreign Affairs, TUC, everybody else who is for and against. It's nice to have you all here, Chief Director, and the audience. Thank you very much for being here. We started off in a very, very nice way, and I say so because it has made my work so easy. Haruna, instead of giving a welcome address, managed to give the keynote address, and Hannah pushed her keynote address into the state of play of the EPAs. So there really is absolutely no need for me to do anything or to say anything whatsoever. The only thing I have is a little slide of some numbers. Is my PowerPoint up? I can't see anything from here, so I don't know whether you've got it screening or not. Is there any way I know what is up on the screen? So what I would like to do is, I will skip everything. I had a nice, good history write-up, and I would like to thank the Center for Policy Analysis, CEPA, for having put together quite a lot of material on this issue in the past decade. They've done an excellent job. They've articulated everything that I think they should. And I also would like to thank those who have also written against the signing of the EPA, particularly the Third World Network, who have also accumulated quite a lot of material. So we are in a very, very nice situation now where most of the material out in the public domain is not new to anybody. We don't really need to go over all of that. I want to make sure that I'm clear in my mind that there's nobody here in this audience today who is advocating that Ghana should not sign an EPA. And I specifically am saying an EPA because this particular EPA with the European Union is just one EPA. I think yesterday the Honorable Minister signed an EPA with Turkey. You did? He did. And we know that Turkey is trying to get into the European Union, so we don't know what will happen to your EPA after a couple of weeks or months or years when they get in. But we did sign one, and that's external and different from what we are doing today. So we do have an idea of all the arguments for and against. And this particular session, in my opinion, is supposed to enable us to actually crystallize those views. If anybody here has an extreme view that says we should never sign an EPA because it is not going to help Ghana, I would like that person to talk to me in between sessions and accommodate my view so I can actually give them a chance to tell us why we should not sign an EPA. I'm guessing that Dr. Yagraham at this stage, is somebody leaving? No, oh, okay. Okay. So you're all abandoning me? Are you okay at the top, guys? Or you want to? You can sit down. I'll manage. I have how many bottles of water now? 12 bottles of water. Okay. So as they come down, if there's anybody here who actually thinks we should not sign an EPA at all, I would like to give you an audience so that you can actually let everybody know that you don't think signing an EPA is a good idea. I think, from what I have read, the problems with the EPA are not that we should not sign, but it is more that the current format in which we have and the current opportunity that we have is not the best, and we can do better. That's my premise. If I'm wrong, I would like to be corrected so we can address the issue. But for now, that's the basis on which I'm driving this discussion. So, just for you to know that I did actually prepare a PowerPoint, and I was actually going to make an argument. This is what I was going to say. I was going to start from the 1950s and 70s, the Lomé Accords, EU and ACP. I was going to go into post-World War II issues, talk about 1957 and what happened with the regime association created for the European Development Fund, the Yaoundé Convention. I was going to talk about the UK joining the EU in 1973 and that changing the parameters. I was going to talk about OPEC and the 1973 oil price crash and the impact of it. I was going to talk about how the ACP countries benefited from the EU because they became an arguing bloc and a bigger, stronger bloc. I was going to talk about the Lomé Conventions, the Cotonou Conventions, go into the Yaoundé Convention, and then I was going to talk about the differences in state between the LDCs, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, and also regional bloc advantages. Then Ghana's peculiar position in being totally isolated because everybody else who is part of the region, as far as ECOWAS is concerned, is also part of another bloc. So we were in a peculiar situation. The signing of the interim EPA became an issue. We were looking at the tariffs and how we could save some of the situation in which we had. I needed to discuss that. Hannah has already spoken all about that. Why we signed, Hannah has explained that. I don't need to talk about that anymore. The competition that we have to fight against is the key issue that we need to address here. The arguments for and against the EPA have been articulated, and this is where I would like to start, so that I can contextualize all of that for us. The arguments for and against the EPA. The agri sector will be devastated and farmers will be impoverished. This is one of the arguments that I have read about, and I'm sure you're all well aware of it. The counter-argument to that is that the agri product sector is considered very, very sensitive. And what we have done is to create a list of the market access offer which we have, so that in that list, as far as it is concerned, we have protected the local markets, and we should have no fear for it not being able to export its produce into the EU market. Local enterprises will not be able to compete and will die off. Again, the counter-argument to that is there are grace periods, and it's a graduated program until we actually lift the tariffs completely down the line. Also, local enterprises can use this period to get competitive, build up their productive capacity, and grow to become part of a competitive market that we need to look at. So this argument also juxtaposes against the previous one. The next one is that jobs will be lost generally when the local enterprises collapse. Well, we don't anticipate local enterprises collapsing, but what we are expecting is that government will put in place enough measures and enough assistance, and they already have. Because if you've been following the market, we have the EDIF, the Export Development Agricultural Investment Fund, which has been put together, which is already existing, and which local enterprises are supposed to tap into to boost agriculture. And I know that it is getting significant inquiries now since the President announced it in his State of the Nation address. We also have other facilities that are available. There's the Exim Guarantee opportunity, so you can actually get 75% of all your risk covered by the Exim Guarantee facility. So all of those things are in place, and most of us should feel comfortable that we can actually lean into all of those. The other argument is that the EPA will undermine the regional trade blocs, and for us it means ECOWAS. Here I have a passion, okay, and we have to get real with this issue. We signed the ECOWAS Treaty in 1975. That's 39 years ago. 39 years ago. And as you heard the Honorable Anateta say, even now you can't get your produce across the border from one ECOWAS country to another. It's a little bit of a joke, I remember writing an article about ECOWAS as far back as 1998. And in that, I was critiquing how ECOWAS had actually managed to move us forward. And the answer was it hasn't done anything for us. Our biggest local West Africa market is Nigeria. And over there, we have major issues of trade relationships. Just recently, we heard that they were not going to give us the amount of gas we needed to be able to power our gas plants, and therefore we are still in dumso, thanks to Nigerian gas that is not coming through. So these things are there, and it is not a feature of the EPA that the ECOWAS bloc is not working the way it is. That is our problem. It is our problem in ECOWAS. It is our failure as the ECOWAS bloc. We have not been able to get to that point quickly enough. Now, if you look at the revenue structure of our economy, if you look at where the money comes from and how we manage it, it gives you a little insight into where we are. So, brief analysis, not too many numbers, so you can see where we are. Ghana takes in, or took in 2013, 14.3 cedis, 14.3 billion cedis of tax revenue. That's what we brought in, 14.3 billion cedis of tax revenue. Out of that, income and property tax gave us 6.3 billion, 44%. Domestic goods and services, 4.8%, that's 34%. International trade, 3.2 billion, and that's 22%. It is this 3.2 billion that we are talking about, of which, on a very broad, generalized, non-critical issue, 50% of it relates to the EU market. And that's the figure we're looking at in terms of tax income, 3.2 billion. If you go down to the last item on the screen, which is where our concern is, that 3.2 billion has import duties of 2.3 billion, export duties of 0.1 billion, and import exemptions of 0.8 billion. All right? Now, half of the import duties, the 2.3 billion, is supposed to be related to EU imports into Ghana. All right? So roughly 1.15 billion is what we are talking about. And I would like everybody to focus very diligently on the last item on that list, import exemptions. 0.8 billion in exemptions alone. If we did something about that, the impact of the loss of income from us, from import levies, will be greatly and significantly reduced. That's the way I see this challenge. And that, for me, is the state of play that we're looking at. This is a matter of commerce and trade, and it's a matter of business. It is not a matter of ideology. It is not a matter of the old colonial empires trying to get back into our coffers and trying to hurt us again. This, for me, is a simple matter of what do we want to be able to tap into a market of 500 million people whose income and whose spending capacity, whose purchasing power is nearly 8 times what we have here in our little country. If I can export my product and I have the opportunity of selling to people who are wealthy, that's where I go. I'll end there and lay some ground rules for how we should approach this. The first thing I would like you to note on your programs is that the Third World Network will not be presenting after Cargill. They will be presenting immediately after the coffee break. DeGray, have you got that? No coffee break. Okay, no coffee break. So, we're going to go straight. So, Third World Network will still come after Sea Freight Exporters Association, before Imani. Please note that. Third World Network immediately before Imani. Okay? All right. Now, as it is, the program will stand. So, I will give everybody an opportunity to speak. Please, you don't have more than 7 minutes at the podium. So, keep your presentations short. Crystallize your views, tell us exactly what your issues are, and don't ramble on, because if you ramble on, I'll cut you off so we can get a consensus of what we're trying to achieve. All we want to do by the time we leave here at the end of the day today is to be very clear in our minds exactly what it is that Ghana has to do in order to be able to get this EPA signed and be ready by the 1st of October. I take ECOWAS as an issue to be reconciled with. However, we still have an option to go one-on-one with the EU and sign our own EPA. If we don't want that, I need to hear it. If we want that, let's say so. However, we have strengths and advantages in being a better bloc, but there are challenges with the ECOWAS bloc as well. So without any much ado, is Lesia here? Is it Lesia or Lekia or Lechia? Are you here? Can you come up, please? Whoever is presenting for you, can you please come and start? So gentlemen and ladies, or ladies and gentlemen, we'll kick it off and we'll follow the program as strictly as we can. And please, let's stick to the points and let's not score any political points. This is about business and commerce, no politics. And after Lesia, Cocoa Processing Company, are you here? Is CPC here? CPC? Not here.
Honorable Ministers of Trade and Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, ours is a very small kind of presentation. I did have something to present as a teacher, but from the deliberations I thought my sister is very strong and that very intelligent Minister of Foreign Affairs has given almost everything. Sydney has added more, and I think my brother Haruna has also done much. So we aren't going to give a presentation. I am here only to give a certain specific advice. All that we heard were very, very important. But I'm thinking about the travesty of the process. There are a few contradictions over here which we need to address. If this forum is to give or to have an input or feed into policy, then I would want to advise briefly this way. One, the number of agencies and or groups herein assembled might give their opinion, which are opinions, informed or uninformed, maybe with passion, thinking of how it will affect their organizations, because this is how our letter was stated. For us to give a 10-minute presentation on how my organization will be affected, we were a little worried, because no matter what happens, signing or no signing, my organization will be affected in just one way. We are researchers, so we'll continue to research. Even if it brings war between Ghana and Europe, we will research into war. Our concern, therefore, is that there are few contradictions here. One, all that my sister said, very, very important. But how do we play into the common external tariff that we are all, we've been talking about ECOWAS for far too long, and integration is trade-induced. So what we're doing, we're trying to build our own integrative grouping here in ECOWAS. Now that we have reached a point where we said, let us have a common external tariff from where we could pursue our relationship with Europe, which is very positive. If what Ghana is going to have from this forum stands in marked offensive contrast with what ECOWAS is bringing, where do we go from here? Secondly, if whatever Ghana is going to do from this forum informs Ghanaian thinking, and you could see the thinking of the two ministers who came up here, if whatever we're going to get from this forum would not also be in the interest of the generality of what ECOWAS is going to bring on board, where do we stand from here? Generally, nobody should think that there's no need for an EPA or anything, call it anything. It would be unthinkable. The one who doesn't even have the rudiments in trade and in economic development will just tell you that there is need to replace Lomé. Nobody is quarreling about that. But what kind of replacement has been the contention? So we were thinking that what Nigeria did, what Gambia has done, we could easily do the same thing, not at a forum like this. I beg to be corrected. But when we should have had some consultant coming out to consult with those of us here, to come out with some technical paper which really informs decision. That would have been more plausible, that would have been more authentic than Rice Growers Association coming here to give a passionate kind of appeal for or against. Third World Network coming here, maybe we say it's ideological. Or my brothers who were called to tell what they are doing in their area, if it's positive for them, they will say positive. I believe, honorable ministers, our humble appeal is that we believe in technicalities. We believe in variables that arrive at conclusions and the deliverables. So if it is not too late, can we have a technical committee that will liaise with the ECOWAS committee, because we are part of it, that will liaise with all those ones of us over here, so that we have a well-informed paper to inform government of the decision. I doubt if there is anybody over here who doesn't want to see the need for replacing Lobe and leaving us in a wonderland. We are all for the signing of a certain EPA. Now that ECOWAS has even seen that the format, the content of which, what we have now is not the one to be signed. It goes a long way to tell us that something else, we are negotiating. We have done a whole lot. We have been able to get this 75% here, this tariff reductions, and the trajectory towards it. These are all positive. If we hadn't done that, and by 2003, 2004, or 2007, we had signed fully the EPA, we would have been regretting. So the debate is still on there. Can we rather, please, have some kind of research work on this to inform us? As I said, Nigeria has done it, Gambia has done it, and that informs policy. And I think we do not have to go in offensive contrast to what ECOWAS will bring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. That was very good. Thank you very much. And that was Lesia's point of view. In very, very broad summary, they think ECOWAS is still important. We should not ignore ECOWAS. We should try and get a little bit more research. They are offering their services. I hope the ministry is listening, that they will be able to provide free research into this whole thing, and they will be happy to be part of an economic discussion on the whole issue. So they think that the way the EPA is structured is not the best, and they would like to see it done differently. Okay, are you ready? Okay. We have a very small change. Dr. Edujemfi is here for the AGI, and we've kept him late, and he needs to walk out to a different meeting after this. So can AGI please come up? I know. And give us their view, and let's see where we have. Because of AGI's larger interest in all of this, I'll allow you 10 minutes to wrap up, but it is exactly 10 minutes. Thank you.
Thank you. Before Dr. Edujemfi comes in, let me chip in that this program is live on City FM. We have to acknowledge City FM for carrying this program live on their network. We also have to acknowledge our media partners who are here. We hope you do justice to the program. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Ministers. I speak as Vice President of Association of Ghana Industries, AGI, and we welcome all you participants. Association of Ghana Industries have a lot of concerns with regard to the EPA, and we would like to make it known. First of all, what is this EPA seeks to offer for the people of Ghana? Why are we cautious in terms of this EPA, and what is the demands by industry? Looking at some of the offers that we are looking at, the conditions and the clauses that impact significantly on our developmental agenda, looking at the private sector development, 2, the Ghana industrial policy. It's been already explained by Honorable Hannah Tete in terms of the timelines, that it is not continuous for the 20 years, but at least every 5 years it will be reviewed, and which is very clear to us. some of the conditions that are binding, and really what we would like to know is basically to have the complete document of EPA agreement to review it, so we will have a positive understanding and be able to relate this to all our members. Why? Because all the identified companies that were called by Honorable Tete are also members of Association of Ghana Industries, and their concerns are also our concerns. We would like rather be the leader to take this group up and work it up, and then do a critical analysis and present this to our Honorable Minister. There are some imminent consequences that we are looking at. Local industries will be affected, and the reason why we are saying that is that you look at our industries in Ghana, 75 to 80% are all SMEs. And even if Cargill is employing about 1,000 people, and we're talking about the exporters are employing, we are talking about 20 sectors that make up the Association of Ghana Industries. It's not just the tuna or what these few 15% that make up the whole thing. It's the totality of the industry that we would like to see in terms of it. So we would like to see what impact it also have on the 85% other than the 15% exporters. We will also know that definitely there will be influx of imports coming from outside, as we are all experiencing now. Yes, there will be significant job losses. It will also affect revenue. What we would like to also see is basically in this agreement, what impact is EU going to have on the industry? We all know and understand that most of the products that will come from the EU, some are not produced, most of them are not produced from the European countries. A lot are coming into their area from China and India. What we are saying is that if European Union have the people of ECOWAS in mind and really willing to help us, the 6.5 billion that we talk about developing us, we are also ready. Because we believe that it's going to take only Africans, or as a matter of fact, ECOWAS people, to develop ECOWAS, but not anybody else. The goods that are being made there, we can produce them, only that we don't have the capacity. And the same way that China closed their doors to build their market, and now they have become the major supplier, Ghanaians, and particularly the ECOWAS region, with 350 million people, are also prepared to build our capacity if we are given the support from this European Union, and thereby it will help us also to have a bilateral trade with them. Because when you are playing, you're a small boy playing with an elephant, it's not easy. We believe, and that is where our fear comes as an industry, and we need that. So with the lack of capacity, that we would not be able to track the goods coming from the EU market, be it made in EU origin or coming from India, but rather coming through EU from India or China, we don't know, because we don't have the capacity. Right now, as I speak, I am one of the industrialists producing pharmaceuticals in Ghana. We export to 6 countries in the ECOWAS region. What happens if you have the same pharmaceuticals coming into the market and they are not paying anything and the duties are we going to be able to compete against their products? Which is no. And I believe that all other manufacturers in our sector also have the same concerns. EPA will further fragment, and generally, as we are looking at harmonization, which Honorable Hanatete is in charge of the integration, we should rather continue to build on the integration or harmonization of the ECOWAS countries, rather than looking elsewhere. Because EU came together, integrated, and built up their own region. Why are we now looking at them? Now that their market is solidified and they are one together, they are looking somewhere to sell. When is ECOWAS going to wake up, to come together, harmonize our system, and break the bridges between Nigeria, Togo, and all the ECOWAS countries? We all know about the Francophone countries. Even within the ECOWAS country, we are not together. When it comes in terms of integration with trade, you see that the English countries, the Anglophones are on one side, the Francophones are on one side. Yes, we talk in general ECOWAS together, but we are not together. So what we are saying, the AGI, we want to take the bold step in helping build this up continue to look at the EPA whole agreement and come out and support it one way or the other. EU has negotiated separate accords with different regions, which is definitely going to open. These are some of our uncertainties. It's already been explained that 75% is what is going to be used and not 100%. We agree. But yet we would like to see, in terms of the 6.5 billion that EU is talking about given to develop our markets, we have skilled men and women in the European Union with a 230 million population in the ECOWAS. What we are saying is that we would like to have a bilateral relationship in terms of capacity building so that we can grow our markets. Investment and development assistance will not be guaranteed by this EPA. No provisions is also being made for beneficiaries in terms of developmental assistance. So, people of Ghana, do we want to continue to be exporters of raw materials? Or are we ready that through this EPA, we will be able to develop our markets? I have a few points for the government to look at it. Government must make available the full document of this EPA as soon as possible to AGI for all stakeholders to have a critical look, analysis, and report. We need the government to present its own comprehensive country comparative analysis of this EPA. Government must commit in subsidizing exporters in the interim if we happen to rush and sign this. And there must be alternatives for exporters in terms of diversification of their markets. We believe that even though the time is short, there still must be concrete consultation for us to look at this critically. We are not against it as Association of Ghana Industries. All we are saying that even though time is not on our side, we still need little time to look at this document critically for the people of Ghana so that we don't sell ourselves too short. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I think we're making good progress. Short and straight to the point, and I think your attention is being held, which is the important thing. The minute I get anybody up here who starts boring us and putting us to sleep, I'll walk him off so we can get on with the progress. We don't have time to be listening to very, very boring speeches. So, my advice to all of you, those who are coming after this, is that if you think there's a point that you have developed but has been made by a previous speaker, please just say that you agree with the speaker's point, quickly summarize your point and move on, and don't beleaguer it by making it long and winded. So that will help us to come to exactly what kind of a consensus we are looking at. Okay, Cargill. Big round of applause for them to be here, please. You know, there are some companies have been in Ghana for so long, they are part of the fabric. I'm sure that gentleman coming up eats omotuo in Katibe every weekend and probably drinks a Guinness or a bottle of club beer every so often. So, you know, let him come and let's hear what he has to say. You got your PowerPoint?
Yes, I need to translate.
Sure, go on, find it. Do you want to speak in Tree or in English?
In Tree.
In Tree. He'll be speaking in Tree. So those of you who don't understand Tree, you excuse him.
Kakra, kakra.
Kakra, kakra, there you go. Sorry. Okay, just introduce yourself for the people.
Yeah, so, is it already presenting? Okay. Good morning, everybody. Honorable Minister of Trade, Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador of the EU, ladies and gentlemen. So my name is John Andre. I'm the Managing Director of Barry Keller Boat. Today I represent Cargill because my colleague is in Amsterdam at this stage, and I will represent also the cocoa processor industries in the country. I will show you some figures. We are also part of the AGI. We hold a slightly different standpoint, but it's good to open discussions. Barry Keller Boat, we are a Swiss group, but we are also concerned by the EPA. So I wanted to share a broader picture of the cocoa sector worldwide. And you can see that at the grinding stage, so what volume in thousands of tons is grinded worldwide on the different continents, you will understand that quickly regarding Europe, 35% of the world cocoa produced is grinded on that continent, while 75% of the world cocoa production, the beans are coming from West Africa. Now, have a quick look at the Ghana pictures. So, the first cocoa processing company has been settled in the country in 1965. This is Cocoa Processing Company, CPC. Since then, another 13 companies have been built, and today we have 14 processors in the countries, and the total capacity, installed capacity, is 400,000 tons. The used capacity so far is 240,000 tons. And so I come to the point mentioned by my predecessor from AGI. Installed capacity is there, free capacity is there. It's not that we are short of capacity. The country has the capacity, but the EPA can have an impact of further grinding in the country. Now, if we look at the butter and powder demand, so this is the end product from the cocoa. If you want, after processing, grinding and pressing, you get butter and powder. You will see that more than 50% is consumed simply in EU. So we have to look at the consumer market. Where is the consumer market? Because these are the people who will buy the product at the end and who will pay for it. So as I said, EU is the most important export market for Ghana processors, cocoa processors. In fact, if you look at the figures for last season, 79% of the semi-finished products are going to EU. 79. The rest is shared among Asia, US, and South America. Now, what is the impact of the EPA on the sector? Where for beans it will be still 0%. So do we want to promote the bean export? Is the question. Liquor will be impacted by 6.1%. Butter, 4.2%. Powder, 2.8%. So you have to know that the cocoa processing sector is a very cost-competitive market. And it will be quickly become almost impossible to compete with the processors in the EU zone. Because I remind you, this is the consumer market. If we want to talk about figures, I have considered a common value for the different products, butter, liquor, cake or powder, including that import duty. This would be in millions of dollars. 30 million would be the amount, additional amount we would have to pay to enter that zone. If I translated it to cost per bean, per ton of bean, it would be $156. So the African cocoa processors, in fact, will face disadvantages of processing cocoa in the origin countries. You have to know that also the European market is favoring the liquid transport, the transport of liquid products. So your liquor is transported liquid from factory to factory, while in the origins we are obliged to harden the product by cooling it down. So you have the cost of remelting the product at arrival to process it further. This comes with an additional cost. So extra costs, like I just mentioned, will bring negative margin, in fact, to the origin processors. I mentioned it just earlier also, it's a capital intensive with huge fixed costs. And that's the reason why we are obliged to work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. We don't stop. It's the only way to be competitive with the other markets. And you would be surprised, yes, we are doing it. Yes, on Saturdays, Sundays we work. Now, this is a very interesting slide. It has been made by PricewaterhouseCoopers. We have asked to make an inquiry about the sector and bring together all the different statistics for all the processors in the countries and see what would be the impact of our sector if we would have to, on our sector, if we would have to disappear. It's very simple. Today our sector has supply and service contracts with about 1,600 companies. And in that group you would say this, but probably some are supplying from outside and some are from Ghana. But what is the percentage from Ghana? It's 88%. It's the biggest part. Now, if you translate that into figures, over, so in 2011 alone, just to mention that figure, these transactions, the amount of the transaction represented $21 million. Over a period of 3 years, between 2009 and 2011, this represented more than $50 million. And now, regarding the employees, how many people would be affected? If you consider 30 people per company you are working with, but you can quickly translate it into 48,000 employees and families. As simple as that. So basically, what would be the worst case scenario? We would have to slow down our way of working. So from 24/7, we would work only 5 days a week. It would be difficult to sell at competitive prices in the new markets, because you have to know that in the chocolate industry you will find very seldom 100% Ghana origin. It is blended with other origin. That's how the market is, because of a taste profile. You have one of the best beans in the world, but we need to work on that bitterness. It has a specific bitterness. Some smaller companies will not have the financial strength to survive and would go bankrupt. And basically, direct jobs, about 1,000, would be lost immediately. And I mentioned it is not even 25,000, it's 48,000 jobs that would be lost on a broader range. So new investment in the cocoa processing sector would not be attractive anymore. Already we are not using our full capacity. I mentioned it earlier. 64% is used so far. So what we would see is that processors would shift their activities to other countries and probably to EU. And the whole equipment could be just dismantled to access that to access other countries with free access, or ACP countries having signed the EPA, like Ivory Coast. So it would be probably more competitive to grind in Ivory Coast and at the end to deliver the same markets, because the consumers have not shifted, they are still in Europe. So the conclusion is that without an EPA, the whole cocoa processing industry in Ghana would not longer be sustainable, and basically there would be no future. for the sector. I thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Thank you very much, John Jeffrey. A bit scary, I think rather scary when you think of it. And I do believe that the organizations and persons who are objecting to the signing of the EPA are not saying don't sign an EPA. They are saying the present arrangements that we have, there are certain clauses that might not be beneficial to Ghana. I hope that that is what we're saying, and I hope that when we hear the strong, vociferous arguments from the opposing sides, or the do not sign EPA side, that we will be a lot clearer as to exactly what it is that they are asking us not to do, and they will be clear in that. What I took away from John Jeffrey's comments are very simple. He says that we have the capacity in the country. We don't have enough supply, and we are not able to at least reach full potential. So we have probably just a little over 50% of production that we are working on. 50% of all our consumption for our products are located in the EU market. So it makes a lot of sense to continue to depend on a market that is stable and guaranteed. The consumer processing market, the cocoa market, is a highly competitive market, and the tariffs will make local production unproductive. Then he also went on to say that out of their production, 88% is local content. They depend on the local consumer, the small businesses and the small organizations, to enable them to meet their target and to be competitive. Lastly, he's saying that if we do not supply, if we back out of the market, there are others who are waiting to jump in. And when people jump in, it becomes very, very difficult for you to get back into that market. And that is the challenge that we face. But overall, he's saying, if you get to a point where you say you are not signing an EPA, you have completely signed the death knell of the cocoa processing sector in Ghana. And that's what I got from him. So, this program is going out live on City FM, also now on Joy FM. So without too much now, because time is always a killer, we are going to ask the Economic Justice Network to come up and come and give us their point of view. Please, a big round of applause for him, okay? Now, because that they are against the signing of the EPA in its present form, that's what you're coming to argue, right? In its present form. Or we should scrap it completely?
Well, you hear me when I finish.
Okay. I want to make sure before I cut the mic off. So, I'll again allow him, I'll extend him by 3 minutes to 10 minutes. And if you need to go on for another 5 minutes, you let me know, and I'll give him that grace. Because I think we should hear everything they have to say. We don't want them to go sit on radio after this and come and say they were not given an opportunity to express their views completely and thoroughly. Big round of applause, please.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, and Honorable Minister of Foreign Affairs and Chairperson of the ECOWAS Council of Ministers, Honorable Minister of Trade, and fellow stakeholders who are concerned about Ghana. We are very happy for this opportunity. Without too much preliminaries, I'd like to state that we want to make 4 quick points. The first one is this, that if you look at the content of the ECOWAS EU EPA text on the table, which was concluded on January 24th, 2014. If you look at the terms and provisions, the overall balance of those terms are negative for Ghana as an economy today, and negative for Ghana's potential to transition from an economy who's largely based on smallholder agriculture into a manufacturing future. First point. Second point, if you look at the terms and provisions of that agreement, even though, contrary to what has been claimed, that we have to sign the EPA because we want to be WTO compatible, a large part of the terms of the ECOWAS EPA, about 9 out of 10, are not required by WTO rules and agreements. Thirdly, there is a workable, feasible, practicable alternative to signing the EPA as it is now. That does not require depending upon the generosity of the European Union, but that can be generated from Ghana's own resources. 3 points. So first point, I will reverse the order because I think that we have heard many, many times, both our honorable ministers have said that nobody is compelling us to sign the EPA. We have to sign the EPA because the WTO rules require that if we are going to maintain our access to the European Union market, we must have the EPA. Now that is true, but it is true only in relation to trade in goods. The WTO requirement relates to if we want to export our products to the European Union, if we want to import European Union products, what are the terms of those imports? There's a deliberate WTO rules which govern that. But if you look at the ECOWAS text on the table, and please, we are looking at the ECOWAS text because that is what the heads of state met in Yamoussoukro to try and approve, and they have delayed the process. This is not about general European Union relationships with Africa or colonialism or anything. Nobody has said that. We are just looking at an agreement on the table and comparing the text. If you look inside it, you will have about a number of provisions. There is something called a rendezvous clause, which says 6 months upon the adoption and finalization of this agreement, ECOWAS countries will open a negotiation and adopt a roadmap for the deregulation of investment, which basically is inside there for all the clauses that were not included. Now, that is not required by WTO. We don't have to go into service negotiation, for instance. We don't have to do all those things. Now, so that, we think, should not be part of the discussion issue because it's not required. Now, if you come to look at the market access element, there are many things, even in the agreement now, that have been mentioned. What is the scope of liberalization that we should allow for European Union products? What is the time frame that we should consider to reduce our tariffs for those European Unions to 0? For us, it's only these 2 particular things that there's a legally compelling reason in the WTO to be compatible to apply WTO rules. In the EPA, there's a provision for export taxes, which says that export taxes that West African countries are charging now on products must be frozen to what exists now. And if you want to charge export taxes on newer products, or you want to raise what you are charging, it has to be discussion and ultimate consultation with the European Union. That is part of the